Hello and welcome back to Two Dudes, One Barbell. This is episode 10. And today we're going to be talking about strength and depression. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at a study that John's found that, well, in regards to grip strength and its relation to depression, which is
super interesting. It's actually one of my favorite studies.
Yeah. So we're talking about that. We're going to be talking about some exercise interventions and the effects of that on depression and things you can do exercise-wise and movement-wise to help improve your situation.
And probably some speculations on other things that you could do and support that.
Yeah. And we'd like to just set it straight. We're not psychologists. We're not doctors. This is just our understanding.
Obviously a lot of this will be our opinion and
our own experience.
And ours. Exactly.
Anecdotally and in regards to clients that we've had and experiences we've had as well.
Yeah, and so if you get anything from it, that's wonderful, but
just take it as
gospel. We're just two dudes, right? So we're not doctors. So,
but at the same time, it's a very important subject. It's very under talked about and needs more.
Well,
discussion.
I think people like to skim over it. And can I start with a rant?
Go.
Okay, I'm going to start with a rant because a lot of the time there's a push for. Bear in mind, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a dude. There's a push for awareness campaigns over mental health, and my counter argument to this push for awareness campaigns is, I think everyone knows depression exists.
Yeah.
Like the "Are you okay" day thing really annoys me. The reason for that is, if you're depressed, I know if I was depressed and someone random or someone I wasn't close to asked me if I was okay, what would my response be? Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So
they're not gonna open up to you, or
they're only gonna open up. Well, my belief in terms of my experience is people will only open up to people that they trust or respect or anything like that.
Or aware of their situation potentially already.
Exactly. And then if you set like an "Are you okay" campaign or day, nothing against Mental Health Week, I think it's generally a good idea, but the fact that if you try to initiate these sorts of conversations based off like an obligatory question that it's almost like a mandatory requirement.
Yeah. You could almost say would you call it virtue signaling potentially? Like
possibly.
On this day you message your mates, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
It's sort of not
just make it aware, and it's almost like it like almost demeans the whole experience for the person who's suffering, right? And so that was my initial little gripe on this. What we're going to do today, I hope, is more supportive in like, what do you do instead of saying, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I feel like crap."
What can you do?
What possibly
practical application
could you actually maybe do? That's within your control.
Yeah, absolutely. And things that are backed by science to help improve potentially a situation.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the science is pretty slim. If I think I talked about this in the first podcast, maybe this is my real interest. This is where I want to do my postgraduate research. And the first study, the only study we're going to talk about today is a longitudinal study in Ireland looking at people's grip strength associated or inversely associated with this depression. So what that means is the stronger someone's grip was, the less depressed they were. Which is
super interesting. Phenomenal that it was pretty substantial, wasn't it? It was
it's pretty robust. Of course, this is epidemiological research. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what that means is, they're just looking at trends within a population. They haven't done anything to intervene or help them change something. So they're just looking at it. It doesn't mean that strength means that you're not depressed. They just saw that people who are...
They noticed trends over a long period of time. So longitudinal study took several years or a long period.
Exactly.
They took a population, they took the same person basically, tested them reoccurringly over the course of a few years, not giving them any sort of pretense to why or what they were testing for.
Yeah, well, and actually the data from this whole study, it's like an Irish longitudinal study. They measured a whole bunch of things, not just the depression and stuff. So that's a little snippet of the actual
Something
whole study.
they noticed. They just tested a whole bunch of different things, and they noticed, hey, look at this. As grip strength decreases, depression rates increase.
Yeah. And the key takeaway was that it had a more robust effect on women.
Yeah.
So there seems to be some sort of sex difference between the application of strength or, physical strength and reduction in depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I would argue that probably that's going to really help with men too. I don't know how much of a difference there is. And this is one study which is hopefully going to kickstart
more studies, more science, which is necessary.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Obviously something that I want to be a part of. But yeah, it does kind of reinforce some of the ideas that lots of people would probably already have around training.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, Exhibit A, right?
Yep, okay.
Myself. I suffered with depression for some time in my life, and I have noticed that with a focus shifting towards strength training specifically, I really have had no real depressive symptoms for close to 4 years.
Wow, okay, yeah.
So that's a sample of one.
Yeah. And with that, would you say that's one of the main interventions you implemented on your own life to try and improve the situation?
Okay.
Or was it subconscious?
I've got a number of different things that I think have helped me personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strength training has definitely been an integral part of that. Sleep is the other thing that has been a huge impact on...
Yeah, because you had chronic sleep issues.
Yeah, I had real bad sleep issues. So you could just say, John solved his sleep issues about 3 years ago. That's true. But I think strength training is something underneath that has sort of been helping me because I have goals to achieve and
it gives you progression. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to aim for, and
like I'm Exhibit B. So
Exhibit B.
I've also had my own fair share of like a deep depression years ago. It was about 6 years ago for me.
Yep.
Where I had
around 20 then.
Around 2021, yeah.
That's around the time I had my worst as well.
Yeah, like at that point I had like no direction, no money, no real like social life, no career path. I was like a Domino's delivery driver. I was like in the pits of my depression. And so the one thing that was always there as something to progress forward on was the weight training. Like I still trained at the gym. We would go down to like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, down from like 5 or 6 sometimes.
Yeah.
But I always had something, and it's always a steady progression. And like I could use it as and at least I did that today.
Yeah.
And so even if the rest of my day was like playing video games and feeling sorry for myself, at least I went to the gym, and it probably carried me through like all of the turbulent years of my teenage years and like into my 20s, and it's just kept going. And like it was a big motivation for why I became a trainer in the first place. Was I saw so much benefit from myself getting into weight training and improving my physique and my self-confidence and getting stronger and improving my life as a whole.
Yeah.
That I was like, I want to help people achieve this as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you wanted to become a personal trainer, strength coach around 20? Is that when you decided to step into it? That's actually the same age I did my diploma of fitness.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had a very, very similar thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fair enough. There you go. Yeah. And like, so we got into it for the same reason.
Very, very similar
reasons.
Yeah. Anyway, the great thing, and this is, a lot of the research supports the use of exercise in general as a thing to ameliorate both anxiety and depression. However, I've personally found that strength training has been more robust.
Yeah.
Even though there's actually more evidence for cardio.
Supporting cardio.
Yeah. So that's obviously a benefit if you enjoy cardio and there's something that you can do.
Yeah.
If I can, should I just chuck the guidelines out for that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so for anxiety, we're looking at between 15 minutes and about 45 minutes of continual activity at a self-selected intensity 5 times a week, or 3 to 5 times a week. And to maintain that over a 8 to 9 week period, you should have, they find a severe reduction in anxiety from that in the groups that they've intervened in. And that includes post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and I think a few panic conditions or panic disorders, which is quite interesting. So it's like a broad spectrum approach, and it helps pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
At different levels.
Yeah, of course.
With depression, I think it needs to be a little bit more in terms of the amount, in terms of cardio, about at least 20 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes of continual activity, 3 to 4 times per week. And the duration was very similar, maybe a little bit longer before you see changes.
Good results, yeah. So it was 9 weeks for the anxiety specific stuff. Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit longer for depression. Of course, these are averages drawn from meta-analyses, so they've drawn averages of the amount of time.
So it'll change individual to individual, of course.
Of course, very, very important to consider. But particularly with anxiety, they can see benefits from training like almost instantly in terms of reductions in anxiety. Depression is not as
Depression is a little bit more deep and sort of ingrained, isn't it?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. The harder one to get out of, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we speculate around a few reasons why that might be, or why?
Yeah, so with the cardio, well, why don't we start with cardio? Why would cardio be great for anxiety and depression? Well, anxiety-wise, right, I think a balancing of neurochemicals within the brain, if you stress your metabolism, you have to use up glucose. And sometimes it's, for anxiety particularly, there can be an increase in excitatory neurotransmitters within the brain. It may not be the only reason, but for a lot of people, there's too much glutamate going on and it's going crazy in the brain. And then if you slow the steam of that because you're using your metabolism, it kind of levels things out.
Okay, so if you doing the cardio, you're burning the glucose elsewhere, like using
glucose seems to have an effect on glutamate. Glutamate's an amino acid, so it's not actually glucose, but
okay, because the glutamate stuff I wasn't sure about.
In the brain you have the most common excitatory neurotransmitter is glutamate, so it does a lot of things within your brain. Actually, when people have seizures, it's often because there's too much glutamate in a certain region. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. So it stimulates a specific region.
And then things can go. But they speculate that that happens in anxiety as well. So some certain parts of the brain become overactive.
Yeah. Which is why you can't switch off. That's what it is. Excitatory amino acids are.
Excitatory neurotransmitter, but glutamate is actually an amino acid.
Yeah.
Actually, amino acids are precursors for most of our neurotransmitters. That's the importance of protein, guys. We've already talked about that.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, cool.
So that's what I think.
Doing cardio gives like another outlet for...
Yeah. There's also other speculations over high intensity activity changing the actual substrate that your brain uses. So when you, typically we're going to use glucose in our brain, right? That's the source that your central nervous system wants to use. But when you start increasing the intensity and glucose is being used elsewhere, you actually start using, or the speculation is you can start using lactate in your brain instead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so for those of you who are like, oh, this is all too sciencey, glucose is a sugar, right?
The base of all sugar, essentially.
Yeah.
All sugar becomes glucose in the system.
Yeah, so whenever you eat carbohydrates or anything, it's going to turn into glucose. You're going to use that with your brain. About 20% of your energy intake is used for your brain. 20%, that's a lot.
That's a fair bit, considering the size of your body.
Exactly. Your brain's only like 1.5 kilos.
Yeah, which is why when you do a super low carb diet, you tend to get fairly dumb or like slower a little bit.
Yeah, we could
I find that.
You find that?
I find that.
Yeah, but you're also probably in a huge calorie deficit. Right?
Yeah, but if you were to cut out all carbohydrates, like if anyone's tried to go into keto before the first week when they're starving themselves with carbohydrates.
Some people actually see the adverse effect because maybe they have problems with metabolizing glucose in the brain. So I don't know, maybe someone can comment and tell us if you actually feel better in terms of your mental state. going low carb.
There you
But lots of people just feel like a slug.
Yeah.
So glucose, right? Molecule used for your brain. When you do exercise, you actually split the glucose molecule into two smaller molecules, and those get turned into lactate. So you've got little half sugars used in your brain.
Okay.
Right? That would be the simple way of...
Yep.
And that's called the lactate shuttle. We won't go on. Let's
call that there.
Yeah, let's chop it.
Okay, fair enough. So your brain's using the glucose. If you do exercise, it gives you another outlet for the glucose. So it's not all just stimulating the brain, or it gives you...
exactly.
It'll like run you out of the energy source that you'd normally start pumping your anxious brain with when you go into bed or something like that.
Yeah, it's like an overactive part of your brain, and now it's actually, you're limiting the glucose, or you're switching out the fuel. You put a little bit of ethanol in the engine instead of just having straight petrol.
Yeah, okay.
I can't think of any other analogy. Right?
Another metaphor for it.
Anyway, that's probably, they think, part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
As to
Behind why
why
the implementing of cardio helps with anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the other one,
I mean, other reasons would be just, well, in my opinion, it would be, was it self-satisfaction? So the actual accomplishment of it makes you feel good about doing something. The same reason I did my training was like, tick that off. So I've done something. I've ticked that off for the day.
I think that's probably a big effect, but what do most people associate exercise with releasing? Endorphins.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about beta endorphin.
Okay.
Yeah. So endorphins is like, happy feeling stuff. Endorphin is an opioid. It's an anti-inflammatory painkiller.
Yeah.
Right? And people say, it makes you feel good. Actually, endorphin doesn't go into your brain.
No?
It's too big. It's like a huge peptide.
Okay.
But it does attach onto the blood-brain barrier, so it reduces inflammation.
Okay.
Yeah. So beta endorphin, through exercise and through cardio, you actually start stimulating anti-inflammatory chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the major causes for depression is inflammation, brain inflammation.
Brain inflammation?
Yeah, about 30%
of
people's depression can be associated with increases in inflammation, systemic inflammation.
Fair dinkum. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that could be another reason why.
Yeah, okay. Anti-inflammatory effect on the brain.
Yeah.
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 That's super interesting. So what causes the inflammation of the brain? Just like chronic and systemic inflammation?
Well, systemic inflammation does act on receptors on the blood-brain barrier, which increases inflammation within the brain.
Yeah.
Right? And you can measure that with a spinal tap. I wouldn't suggest that, guys. But you could measure the peripheral or the actual chemicals within your blood. And if you have inflammatory cytokines, which are proteins, right, you can measure little chemicals within your blood to see if inflammation is occurring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have like systemic inflammation occurring in your body,
yeah,
there's a chance it'll have an impact on your brain.
Yes.
Yes.
Most definitely, especially over a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, we are supposed to have inflammation acutely. We've talked about this before. We talked about cortisol.
Inflammation temporarily is a good thing. Yeah. Cortisol temporarily is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's the long term sticking around and not going anywhere.
Yeah, and if you think your body is in this inflamed state, and then it's like hitting receptors on the blood-brain barrier, the brain is like trying to protect itself from like, the reason why we have the barrier is to stop toxins going in, right?
Yeah, okay.
So they'll turn little keys on your brain to say, this is what's happening in the rest of the body, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if it keeps telling us like, we're super inflamed, it's time to release some inflammatory cytokines in the brain as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it can change the metabolism of things within the brain, but we won't go there. Sorry.
Yeah. Lots of science. I'm struggling to keep up, guys. Don't worry.
Okay. So those are two sort of reasons why we could see anxiety and depression change
on a biochemical level.
On a biochemical level.
Which I think is an important thing to establish, because it's not like airy-fairy. It's a lot of people think that like, yeah, you should get out in the sunshine and do exercise because it'll make you feel better, and everyone thinks it's like an airy-fairy, like help yourself sort of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty robust.
Yeah, when in fact there is like a biochemical reaction, and you can like, it will eventually, whether you feel like it is or not, it will have that impact. Because
yeah, definitely.
On like a biochemical level, it is happening. It's like, you take painkillers and tell yourself the painkillers aren't going to work, and they're still going to do something.
Yeah, and that's funny that you bring up painkillers, because one way you can treat depression is by taking painkillers.
Anti-inflammatories.
Anti-inflammatory.
That's crazy, yeah.
In fact, versus SSRIs, they have the same effect.
What?
Like the same yield, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and in some cases, depending on the actual drug, the anti-inflammatories have better effects.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, I remember hearing that a while ago that like Panadol can be helpful with depression. I think I told a friend of mine about it.
Yeah. We're not doctors.
We're not doctors. This is just, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the systemic inflammation causing like depressions. Everyone likes to talk about the effect of like gut health and stuff like that on your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously your gut could stimulate the release of certain chemicals within your body, systemically moving, right? But going into the gut health stuff, and this is a quick sidetrack on gut health, do you know how many bacteria there are in your gut?
Too many.
A lot. There's about 10 trillion on average, right? And how many different types of bacteria? Who knows? And then if someone tells you that they know how to change your gut flora, like...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't know enough for people to have any idea.
Yeah, there's just no
about
enough
that
science.
stuff.
There's no way we can tell.
It's like chucking like a small species within the Amazon and expecting it to change the whole Amazon. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
it's just absurd. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair income. Yeah.
Like, you could flood the Amazon with rodents, and then of course it's going to change it, and
It's
that's
gonna
what.
mess it up something.
Yeah, but like,
for it to have a positive effect on the Amazon, like
Yeah,
know
it's-
that that's going to happen or whatever. But
yeah, you got some weird sort of balance, and I'm sure there's people that know a lot more than we do about that gut flora stuff, but be very careful changing that stuff, I think.
yeah, I think a lot of people jump on the bandwagon of gut health stuff as another attempt at quick fixing.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
that's fair.
yeah, people will start taking like fix your gut formula, but not fix their diet.
Yeah, well, things that change your gut flora, sunlight is one of them. Going out in the sun changes the bacterial profile in your gut.
Yeah.
So if that tells you something that you don't even eat changes the bacteria in your gut. Like, there's lots of things you can do.
There's too many things going on.
Opposed to this gut formula stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Mm.
Plus, like certain deficiencies and stuff like that, and their impact on your mental health, like the flow-on effect from like an iron deficiency or vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah, exactly. There's a cascade.
There's a
Vitamin
cascade
D is
thing.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I've had a vitamin D deficiency before
Really?
at university. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just before my massive depression bit.
Well,
Yeah.
is that part of the reason, do you think?
I reckon it was definitely, it didn't help the situation. I definitely, not getting the sunlight wasn't the only reason that I got depressed, that's for sure.
Of course,
But,
of course. That's part of the puzzle, though.
But it's part of the puzzle and something that like opened my eyes to it. I started supplementing it and felt better after a couple of weeks. But it was my own fault from playing video games all night and sleeping all day. Like, I was not living a very healthy lifestyle.
And you lived in Queensland at the time, actually.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of sun.
A lot of sun. I just didn't go outside or do anything.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of living in this particular part of the world is we have the availability of sunlight.
Yeah.
It's just whether we use it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, in certain countries where they don't have the availability of sunlight, we have seasonal affective disorder, right?
Seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
So like seasonal like rates of depression increasing, that
Yeah,
sort
it's
of thing.
called SAD.
SAD.
That's a funny acronym. I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah, in certain parts of the world during winter, rates of depression increase because of lack of sunlight.
Lack of sunlight.
Now, whether that's just vitamin D or anything else that we get from the sun is another
There's probably
thing.
a lot of things going on. Like I said, like it's a very complex situation. You have to say it's one thing. But
we're
like,
just two dudes with small brains. Like we're trying our best.
trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
But I've told my clients on numerous occasions that they should at least try to get like 10 minutes of sunlight a day, direct sunlight, not through windows, because like
it's going to be different.
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
gonna be different. You've got to get out in actual sunlight.
Yeah, if you're Caucasian, you actually absorb it better, of course, because we're
Less melanin.
we're pasty and we absorb it.
We burn quicker.
Yeah, so there'll be a spectrum depending on how tanned you are. But yeah, definitely, I think 10 to 15 minutes a day is probably what we're looking at. The cool thing about vitamin D, and we're a little bit off topic, but we can come back, and it's still about mental health.
Mental health, yeah.
Is vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. What does that mean? You store it in your fat. So if you accumulate enough vitamin D over summer,
it's stored in
it
fat.
will last.
It'll last you a while. Fair enough.
Does that make sense? So it's not like you don't
just lose it. Like with water soluble vitamins, you'll pee them out.
Yeah, there's obviously some exceptions there, but yeah, usually the general rule is a fat soluble vitamin we should be able to hold on to for longer. So I don't know how much you can actually accumulate. There might be some smarter individuals. Maybe we can look into that at some stage.
Yep, figure out how much
you
absorb.
And how much you can actually store from sunlight. But yeah, it's fat soluble.
That's so interesting.
And actually, vitamin D is probably more like a hormone
than
an actual vitamin. Think about its functions within the body. It helps move and mobilize calcium. It turns on and off switches. It looks like cholesterol. It looks very similar to testosterone if we looked at the actual shape.
Really?
Yeah, it's a sterol.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot of stuff right now, guys.
Yeah.
This is why John's here. He's way smarter than I am.
So yeah, in your butt, and if anyone was curious as to where the vitamin D comes from in the atmosphere, it doesn't. It's already in your body. It has cholesterol, and you expose it to UV light. The cholesterol is exposed to UV light, and that process allows for you to turn it into vitamin D. So it's actually cholesterol.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
So if you had a low cholesterol diet or you couldn't produce cholesterol, the sunlight's probably not going to do anything. But
yeah, okay.
Let's
not a lot of people.
Let's not go there. Most people are probably producing enough cholesterol.
Yeah. We'll go there another time.
Yeah.
That's not to encourage anyone to consume more cholesterol or try and have more cholesterol. What was it, like, situationally?
Yeah, I don't know.
We need to do a whole podcast on cholesterol.
Cholesterol's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, if I just quickly tap into it, cholesterol is the backbone for most of your hormones, your sex hormones. And so it's, when you say, like, is it good, is it bad? It's not. It's just necessary.
It's necessary, like most things in your body.
Yeah.
Like cortisol.
Like cortisol. Well, actually, guess what? Cortisol is
made from
cholesterol.
Yeah. Yeah. And testosterone. That's why if you drop your saturated fat to like nothing and you cut down your cholesterol intake, it can mess with your
hormones like crazy because we use saturated fat to make cholesterol. Yeah.
And I suspected that I'd done that before as well during my first prep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is super interesting.
Yeah. The contest prep thing. I wonder what the depression is like for them.
Ooh.
I
know a lot of people struggle through comp prep, especially ladies, which is my tie back into our original talking point.
Yes.
Ladies suffer a lot more mental health issues going through a comp prep, and this is just from what I've seen, what I've observed.
Of course.
They've higher rates of like dropping out, more turmoil throughout.
Yeah.
They require probably some more support than the guys will.
Yep.
Typically. And there's a lot of different reasons. Like a lot of it's body image and body dysmorphia related.
Oh, so it's often related to how they look, is it?
Yeah, it's how they look, but also how they feel. Like obviously they're gonna feel crappier. They're gonna feel hungrier.
There's probably a link there too as well. How you feel and how you see yourself.
Observe yourself and like.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we wanted to talk about, or we were going to talk about, was why ladies might be more susceptible to depression. Why they found like in this study that it was more evident in the female population than the male population.
So if we bring it back to the study, all those people were, I think they were above 50, but they didn't really see that much depression with the men. So, but then they saw a fair amount of depression with the women. And then the stronger they were in terms of grip strength, the less
they saw. Yeah.
Yeah. So why do women experience higher rates of depression and higher rates of anxiety? Now this is full spectrum, right? So women over any age, typically that will be the case. Even though we see high rates of suicide in men, women have probably high rates of depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Which is
more susceptibility to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, well, one of the reasons that they speculate is because that's higher rates of neuroticism.
Yeah, so on the spectrum, if we are going to start quoting Jordan Peterson, right? Wonderful scientist.
Yep.
He said, well, from the data and personality, women in general have half a standard deviation higher neuroticism than men.
Yeah.
And his speculation was because they're more vulnerable, or they feel more vulnerable.
And so neuroticism being basically emotional variability sort of thing?
Yeah, so the spectrum of neuroticism is emotional stability. Well, the new name for it, because people don't like to use the word neurotic, the new name
it
for
sounds kind of negative, doesn't it?
It does sound pretty negative.
Yeah.
But the new way of saying it is the spectrum of emotional stability, right?
Yeah.
So the less neurotic you are, the more emotional stable you are.
Yeah.
So typically women are more susceptible to negative emotion. So they're more likely to have negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? That's what neuroticism means. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just how often, any situation, you're more likely to feel
negative emotions.
Yeah.
Does it go for positive emotions as well? Just emotions in general, or is it mainly geared towards
just
negativity?
negative emotions. If we look at other personality traits, they are associated with positive emotions like extroversion.
Okay.
And agreeableness, I think.
Yeah.
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 And so the more agreeable you are, the more you get along with people. The less agreeable, the less likely you are to help people or get along with people.
I have to check that one in terms of positive emotion, but yeah, we'll have to come back to agreeableness. I need to read some
more stuff.
Yeah, but definitely extroversion is associated with more positive emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But as far as neuroticism, the feeling of negative emotions in a certain environment. So like if you put a man and a woman inside in like an experiment, like that stress experiment we talked about a couple of weeks back, and you showed them some negative images on the TV, the woman is more likely to get more upset from the negative pictures and videos or whatever they watch. Yeah. And that's just an inherent biological feature of...
Yeah, and the speculation is because of the vulnerability.
Vulnerable, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be just because of physical status, and this comes back to strength, right? So if you look at any average woman or men, or the average of men and women, men are, in humans, men are bigger than women. Yeah. Right? So usually have more physical strength.
Yeah, and more specifically upper body strength, which was used for fighting and defending themselves and like hunting and that sort of thing.
And I think that's still robustly true because in terms of lower body strength, it's actually pretty close. Yeah. In terms of weight to like
the weight, like pound for pound ratio sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of upper body, men have usually have about a 40% higher strength output. Than women.
And that occurs in like puberty, that like it goes from like fairly
so just they're very even till 10.
And then men develop much stronger upper bodies.
I would actually probably say that girls are stronger at 10 than boys.
Boys?
Yeah.
Fair income.
Yeah. Well, maybe 9. I don't know. It depends how early the puberty hits, because girls can have puberty earlier.
So they start developing. You notice that when you look at just from what I've seen, like you look at a class of children around that age,
and the
girls are bigger. The girls are bigger than the dudes. Yeah.
And that's probably, that's just the timing of puberty, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other thing that would be contributing to that sort of negative emotion is the fact that women are often looking after someone else, right?
Yeah, and so what's Jordan Peterson's whole point again is that the fact that they are maternal creatures and have to look after a child eventually, they need to be able to feel more, to care more for that child.
That's probably more to do with agreeableness, but they should also be scared of stuff.
Yeah.
Because they have to look after or make sure that things are safe for the child. Yeah. Right? Now, men should definitely be part of that.
Definitely.
But they're wired that way.
Yeah, it's a predisposition.
So, it's very interesting that, and we probably would see this across all primates.
Yeah, well... Yeah, the animal kingdom is crazy harsh, especially in terms of like males in certain species abandoning their children or eating their children, or
Yeah, bears are notorious for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bear will eat its own young.
Yeah. Whereas a mother bear would not.
Well, definitely not.
No.
She's
And
like
so,
she's protecting it like
yeah, but like
crazy.
rarely, and I don't know if someone can like give us an example of this, if that's ever in reverse. Like a mother would eat its own young, but the father would defend it. Like, I wonder if there's any.
Maybe in birds.
Maybe in birds?
Maybe in birds. I don't know. Do we have any
penguins or something where the father sits around and holds the egg all day?
Yeah,
or
I
something?
know.
Yeah, maybe.
Can't they're showing us up, eh?
Yeah.
Birds. Yeah.
Better dads than we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's I guess it's because of gender roles specifically. Like, men are supposed to, like, the mother is supposed to look after the child, and that's like biologically and
for the first year at least.
Like,
right?
a child is very vulnerable, and it needs someone to care so much about them that nothing else matters, basically.
Yeah.
So the mother that would lay down her own life to save a child, but a father might not.
Yeah.
And like this happens, and I was watching like a TV show a couple weeks back, something like that this same situation was in place, and they were like, oh, the mother was more willing to die for the unborn child, to let the unborn child live, and the father was like, no, like, we'll try again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to say, like, it was a trade between
still fictional, but
still fictional. It was obviously it was on TV, but I was just watching it, and I was just like, that's a super interesting sort of thing, and I was breaking it. My roommate's just trying to enjoy the TV show, and I'm trying to like discuss with her the psychology behind this and how it's different from male and female. And like, she's so willing to just give her life up so this child lives, even though she hasn't met it. She hasn't like built any emotional, less necessary, like non-intrinsic bond to it. Like, she might not even like the kid, but it's her child, and she's willing to die for it. Meanwhile, the partner is like, no, you survive. Like,
but that's where we're like, we're compounding two personality types or personality spectrums here, because that's to do with agreeableness.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher your agreeableness is, the more you're more likely you're more likely to avoid conflict.
Okay, yeah, you're more agreeable.
More agreeable, and men are much more disagreeable on average than women.
Yeah.
Even though you might say, yes, women argue all the time. No, I'm talking about like they're opposed, that they avoid these conflicts more than men do.
Yeah.
That's why more men are in jail than women.
Yeah.
Right? Because they just don't think about it, they don't care.
They don't avoid the conflict.
Yeah, they just go for it. Like, so, yeah, and of course that's very important because, and if we looked at, some men would be super agreeable and be in the same situation, right? It's just like sort of
yeah, you're on a spectrum. Everyone's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is super interesting.
It is super interesting to see how different people are wired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the strength though, right?
Yeah.
So if you have high neuroticism, right? Or low emotional stability, if we're going to make it the nice term.
The nice term, yeah.
Yeah.
Neurotic does sound nasty, like it does.
Oh, yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to keep calling it that because...
That's what it's called.
It probably will stop being called that because people get funny about these things.
Yeah.
But an easy way to remember the personality spectrums, which are the 5, and now I'm getting off topic again, is OCEAN. OCEAN is an acronym for the 5 personality traits.
Okay.
So openness,
mm-hmm.
C is conscientiousness,
mm-hmm.
E is extroversion, A is agreeableness, and N is neuroticism.
Very good.
So if you guys ever want to...
I definitely want to do the personality test.
Oh, you should go do it. Yeah, go
definitely.
do the Big 5 personality test. It's excellent, and you probably won't be surprised.
No.
Like most people, like, yeah, that's me.
That's me, yeah.
Yeah.
I love those sort of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, the neuroticism, right? If you have high negative emotion, whether you're man or female, or, you know, if you're higher on it, I feel like strength training is for you.
Mm.
Right? I think you should drive towards getting stronger, because if you feel stronger in yourself and you know your own capabilities, I feel like that has a flow-on effect to the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And that, like, our interview with Ashton a couple weeks back, the young powerlifter, said the same thing about him. Like, yeah, he found for his own sake, like he was...
Yeah, he was talking about walking down a dark alley and...
being big enough to sort of stand up for himself or something like that. And like, I've talked to friends that have said the same thing. They're like, they say it about me, and like, they always like, you must be so confident because like no one would mess with you, or like if you were in a confrontation, you could handle yourself. Now, I don't know how to fight. Like, I've never done any fighting stuff. I've sparred once or twice. This, I always tell them, like, this is purely just like, what's it, nuclear, like you have nukes so no one nukes you. What's that called?
Oh, yeah.
That's, it's like scare tactics. It's like,
It's peacocking.
It's peacocking. I'm big, so no one's gonna mess with me. But I'm bluffing.
Yeah.
But they look at that and they're jealous of me because they think that I could handle myself better than them, and therefore that I have more confidence. And it's somewhat true. Like, if you're the biggest guy in a room, you're gonna be more confident in yourself.
Yeah, most definitely.
And if you can handle yourself, like.
And if there weren't like crazy martial arts, it probably would be the case.
Yeah. If everyone wasn't like trained to kill people with pencils these days.
Yeah.
Like,
absolute ninjas.
Absolute ninjas doing
crazy
stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd definitely reckon for females especially, like a female that has knows that she couldn't fight off an assailant if her life depended on it, like that must be crippling.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
I can understand why they'd be so.
And an extension of strength training, I think another avenue is what we just talked about. Wouldn't martial arts be a wonderful way to learn
to defend yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're low in neuroticism, I think those are two great avenues to pursue, and you can pursue them at the same time.
Yeah, get strong and learn how to beat people up if you need to.
Or whatever way you want to be.
Yeah. Defend yourself in some form.
Don't beat them up. Just get away.
Just get away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think so, and like I have a lot of female clients that love doing boxing, mainly for stress relief. But like, I reckon learning martial arts would be good for a lot of people. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're
just learning about your body and what it can do and that sort of thing strength training is part of that. But I think if fear is part of your life, especially like fear in general, I think martial arts is probably a really good outlet. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, because if you can be more confident, like if you can walk into a room and be
just comfortable
in just being there,
your own skin.
Yeah.
I know what I can do.
And that's going to lower anxiety.
Yeah, definitely.
Massively. Like I know it does for me. Like absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So there's a few more things we probably can touch on.
Yeah.
It's such a massive subject that
I think we'll do a repeat at some stage because obviously this is
a passionate subject for you.
This is what I love to talk about.
Yeah, and honestly, me too as well. And we have experience in the matter. Like yeah.
But we're not doctors. We're just dudes.
And like I think there's something to be said for like a lot of like psychiatrists and psychologists and stuff like that. They're obviously limited to what they're doing in their own job, and so outside of that space, having the conversation, even anecdotally, is I think very important.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, like the more outlets you have to listen to sort of some positive stuff or some learning or some experience, it all compounds together. Like if anyone takes what we say and takes that as gospel without backing it up with some of their own research and their own self-development, then that's wrong. Even if you were to go see a doctor and he gives you his one outlet, like you should expand on it in as many ways as possible.
Most definitely.
And so hearing our own experiences, like it's just another little piece of information that you can use towards your own journey. And we're like boots on ground is how I like to think of it. Like there's a lot of people out there that they're either not seeing psychologists, they're not seeing counselors because maybe they can't afford it, they don't have access to it.
Yeah.
And then
there's a big backlog for psychiatrists as well.
Yeah. And like it's super expensive. The system is not like 100%. Obviously there's holes and there's people that slip through the cracks. That's why currently I'm doing a push-up challenge for suicide awareness, trying to raise money, and like that wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't an issue. And
crazy thing is suicide's increasing.
Suicide is increasing. Mental health issues are increasing. At an alarming rate.
So I think the biggest takeaway is like, well, we're trying to provide something so you can do something with take control.
Yeah, take control, absolutely. And
of whatever you can control.
Yeah, and if this is just a little bit of snippet, if this adds like 1% to you getting better just by listening to our stories and what we think and like some stuff you maybe learned today, then that's better than nothing. Better than us doing another thing on like, I don't know, any other subject.
It's way more valuable. Well, I think it's way more valuable, but
absolutely. Because like we all have someone in our own lives that maybe isn't doing so well, and you want to be able to help them, but the fact that you're not a psychologist shouldn't stop you from at least lending a hand in some form.
Yeah, and this is where we probably go full 180 on my my thing against Are You Okay Day. My thing against Are You Okay Day isn't the fact that you shouldn't ask people if they're not okay. I just think you shouldn't do it arbitrarily. It should be with intent.
Yeah.
And it should be with caring and with trust and
more than just, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm coming at it with
a little more substance
to just be on your side and help you through it, right?
Yeah. Plus I feel like a lot of people, if you were to ask, say you don't know a guy very well and he asks you, are you okay? Like, a lot of people that have a lot of things going on, a lot of demons running around in their head, aren't going to just be like willy-nilly unleash that on someone. No. Unless that person has some intent to back it up with like compassion and like give a little bit more than just like, hey man, hope you're doing all right. Yeah. Like, it obviously takes more than that.
Yeah. Well, particularly for, well, I don't know, maybe I'm being sexist here, but particularly for men.
Yeah. Because we're the whole stoic and like don't like to.
Yeah, and it's like showing vulnerability.
Yeah, right? Showing vulnerability.
Which is fair for men to defend. I'm all for that, but at some stage you need to help your buddies out.
Yeah. Well, I follow some really good guys that are like men's coaches and stuff that online that help men be vulnerable in specific ways, like trying to encourage it in a shared group. Like, I think there's a certain level of self-confidence you need to be vulnerable, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like a weird dichotomy. Like,
well, that's the cool thing about human personality and human experience is often it's like both things at the same time, right? It's like your biggest strength is often part of your biggest weakness, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is like a whole new deep philosophical
thing.
Yeah.
Maybe another time.
Yeah.
But no, I reckon, like finding people you can be vulnerable with. Another big thing is like they don't want to be burdens on people.
Yeah.
Which is a side effect of depression.
That's also fair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you want to have control of your own life. It's very important. And that's why obviously you should seek help, but you should also try and do as much as you can yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the satisfaction of you being able to hold your own weight or pull your own weight.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like profound.
Me being the person that dug myself out of my depression is massively motivating and probably one of the things that keeps me out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I had people helping, but there was no one specifically like checking on me every day or like trying to be there all the time. I had friends that would invite me out to things, but they wouldn't be like in the thick of it with me. It was just through me like deciding I need to do whatever I need to do, even if I don't enjoy it.
But the thing is, the friends that invited you out also did a great job of getting you doing stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And one specific friend of mine who, like, I've thanked profusely for this because I only see it in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like 2 years later, I looked back and I took stock on like everything she had done, like taking me out to like go to the markets once a month or something like that, or like trying to get me out of the house, even though she had no obligation to. Like I wrote through this massive message thanking her. But it was like 2 or 3 years later. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, self-reflection is also super useful, hey?
God, yeah.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, I think we could probably talk for another 40 minutes.
We definitely could, but we should probably wrap it up and maybe do a part 2 sometime.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get you guys to write in and see if there's anything that we missed or you'd like us to discuss some more. If you want to hear more about our own experiences or...
Yeah. I bet you no one's going to message in and say, I want to hear more about the metabolism and
the science. Can you explain?
No one cares. John, shut up.
It's super interesting. Like, I think maybe it's just me because I was learning stuff. I was like, what?
Yeah, I hope people didn't mind that too much.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sure they won't. But,
yeah.
Awesome, guys. So, thanks for listening in. Bit of a different one. but also super interesting and super important to talk about. And I'm pretty sure it's Mental Health Week. So now's the time to, reach out to your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go talk to someone. Don't do the "Are you okay" thing.
No.
Only do it if you feel genuine about it, I think.
Yeah, because I think an empty, shallow "Are you okay" probably hits worse.
Yeah,
right?
it's like, oh, clearly they don't care.
They're just doing it to show face or something like that.
Yeah, only do it if you're willing.
You're willing and ready and capable. To take that on. Like if you're gonna offer an olive branch and then they take it and you can't hold it, then you pull out, that's gonna be more damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Don't overextend yourself. Make sure you can help them first.
Yep, most definitely.
Yeah, which is huge. And if you feel like it, so I am doing the push-up challenge for the suicide prevention. If you guys want, you can follow the link in the bio on the video or on everywhere, and you can donate to me and my little brother doing it together.
Yeah, that's
really
cool.
We're over 5,000 push-ups so far with like a week left, so.
Okay,
So please do that.
That's very impressive. That's collectively.
Collectively, between the two of us, like 200 or 100, like around about 100, 200, like nearly every day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is good. Cool. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers.
If you have any other questions, let us know. We love this stuff. We love to talk about it. See you next time.